नमामि धन्वन्तरिमादिदेवम् सुरासुरैर्वन्दितपादपद्मम् लोकैर्जरारुभय मृत्युनाशम् धातारमीशं विविधौषधीनाम्.
We have the other young scientists who have exclusive research experience of more than 20 years in various research institutes. She is Associate Professor and Scientist in the Interactive Research School for Health Affairs in Bharati University. Her research interests include evaluation of Ayurvedic and formulations and procedures in obesity and diabetes, and providing Ayurvedic insights to current understanding of diagnosis and management of these two conditions. She is the chairperson of Ethics Committee, Cipla Palliative Care and Training Center, Pune, and BMK Ayurved Mahavidyalay, Belgaum. She is also associate editor of Journal of Ayurveda and Integrative Medicine and a MUHS approved faculty of Research Methodology and Biostatistics. She has published 35 research articles, 2 book chapters, and edited 4 books to her credit. She has been awarded by many awards, to name a few: Mava Kolhatkar Sanshodhan Puraskar in 2012 and Jivak Vidyarthi Puraskar in 1994. I welcome you, ma'am, in this expert talk series, and I request you to deliver your talk.
Thank you, Dr. Yogesh, and thank you, Basishta sir also. Thank you not only for giving me opportunity to talk on this particular topic, but also this particular talk has given me opportunity to read, to explore, and to think about what is applied research and how we can deal with applied research on health. So it was a wonderful opportunity for me to learn, and thank you, sir, for that. I will start my presentation. So the today's topic which was given to me is applied researches on health. And since last 4 days we are talking about health, and we have explored almost all dimensions of health. We know that health is something which is to be considered at personal or individual level. Health has to be considered on public health level, where healthcare system policies come into picture. Then there is something like organ or system health, where you will find words like cardiac health, GI health, eye health, oral health, and so on. Health in specific groups or specific age groups such as maternal and child health, adolescent health, menopausal health, geriatric health. There are other terms also when it comes to health related literature, and that is kind of occupational health, rural health, urban health. So there are so many aspects of health, and I am sure that in last 4 days you must have gone through at least some of, or maybe all aspects of health during these sessions. So when it comes to health in Ayurveda, we all know that maintenance of health is the primary objective of Ayurveda. And the definition of health in Ayurveda and dimensions of health also have unique features in Ayurveda, which we have dealt on the first day itself. But when it comes to implementation, there are few questions which came in my mind, that have we taken health for granted and not paying as much attention we should pay to it? Have we considered it as an essential modality and not as an inevitable modality? That means we need to tackle health, but we can survive even if we don't pay attention to it. We ensure medical care, but we do not ensure health. So this is something which came in my mind. Third thing was like whether we have kept health in a concept phase without deliverables. Means we do not have clear deliverables. We are talking a lot that in Ayurveda, so many things have been dealt about health, and there are so many descriptions, but where are the deliverables? And are we talking, when we are talking about health in Ayurveda, Are we talking only about individual level? Are we not thinking about public health and the other approaches of health which I have shown you? I just want to take you back to the things which you have already learned, but in a different way. And why I am showing you in a different way, that also has some meaning which you will come to know at the end of the lecture. That when it comes to health in Ayurveda, there are two main aspects: health maintenance and health promotion. So Dinacharya and Ritucharya, basically and under health maintenance. And I have not transliterated Dinacharya as protocol of daily activities, whereas Ritucharya as seasonal adaptation of this daily protocol. We have some daily protocol which we call as Dinacharya, and in different seasons we adopt this daily protocol which is Ritucharya, along with some additional measures such as seasonal Panchakarma. And then there is an aspect of health promotion where longevity and rejuvenation modalities come into picture. If we go further into Dinacharya, then it is a daily protocol, as I said, and there are certain things in this daily protocol: personal hygiene, lifestyle, which takes care of diet, exercise, sleep, sexual activity, behavior kind of things. And when I look at it, because I am a researcher in obesity and diabetes, so when I look at this daily protocol, I find that it is about maintaining the energy balance, the diet, exercise, sleep, perfect energy balance, how to maintain it, that the daily protocol talks, along with some personal hygiene things. And this daily protocol, whenever I look at it, I think that it was best suited for then, is when the Charak Samhita was written, for then social and environmental conditions. Of course, it is individualistic and it is flexible too. And there is a scope for modifications to make it practical and to suit it to the today's world, today's scenario. When it comes to seasonal protocol, there are quantitative and qualitative changes in the parameters, like whatever we have seen, diet, sleep, exercise, all those parameters. We can make quantitative and qualitative changes as the season varies. So what to eat? Increase or decrease in quantity of food, sleep, frequency of intercourse. So there will be quantitative and qualitative changes in all these parameters. And as I have mentioned, there are additional measures like seasonal Panchakarma, seasonal use of immunomodulators like Rutu Haritaki is a unique concept of Ayurveda. So this is a seasonal protocol or Ritucharya. And when we come to longevity and rejuvenation modalities, it comes under the health promotion. It has been described as that all these modalities strengthen immune system, nourish tissues, and they are applicable for both health and disease. There are disease modifier rasayan dravyas also. These modalities are specific to Prakriti, tissue status, even tissue, like for Rasa Dhatu, you will use a different rasayana, and for Rakta Dhatu, different rasayana has been mentioned. It will reduce the disease risk and it can be based on the medical history. So this is the health promotion and maintenance approach of Ayurveda. And when it comes to research in Ayurveda, we mainly see that the research has been done as MD or PhD work. And since it has been done as a postgraduate work only, majorly as a postgraduate work, the scale on which the research has been carried out is very small. The quality, I mean, small scale in the sense the population involved, the sample size is generally very small. The quality of work is also not very great because the MD, PhD students, they pay for the things, they pay for the research, and that's why the quality, the parameters, the follow-up period, the whatever markers have been used are limited to a certain level. Many of these research work do not get published, so we find very few publications, and ultimately this whole situation doesn't create any impact of the work which is done in Ayurveda. Unfortunately, we do not take the work which is done or being done in the allied sciences because we consider that research in Ayurveda means something which is written by Ayurveda people and which is written in the language of Ayurveda should only be considered as research in Ayurveda. But mind you that there are so many things happening worldwide, so many research work are being happening, which are not directly done by Ayurveda scientists or which are not done under the name Ayurveda, but you can relate them easily to Ayurveda research. And I'm going to show you few such examples and you will understand they are very interesting work. And before that, in what all aspects these research works have been carried out. If you take example of diet, then composition of diet, calories, specific items, like there are research works even on pasta, pizza kind of items, development of indices, satiety index, glycemic index. So certain indices have been developed. If you go for exercise research, then type of exercise, aerobic, anaerobic, effect on different systems, for example, cardiorespiratory, musculoskeletal, even on cognition, how exercise affects cognition, this kind of research work you will find. Sleep, duration of sleep and quality of sleep, how it affects the metabolic health and otherwise cognition, learning, memory, CNS functions, all such kind of research. There is a huge body of research you will find, and I'm not going to show you all these research because then we will not able to stop this lecture only. There's so many research works have been there, but I'm just going to show you few examples and how they are interesting. You can see on the left hand side above article, that is empirical derived dietary patterns and incident type 2 diabetes. So here the dietary patterns the authors have categorized as healthy dietary patterns and unhealthy dietary patterns and how they affect on the incidence of type 2 diabetes. And if you see, this is a systematic review and meta-analysis. And I am sure that you must be knowing that systematic review and meta-analysis is the highest level of evidence one can generate. And this is like many studies, when many studies have been already carried out on the topic, this is a compiled analysis of all such studies. So you can understand that when a systematic review is written on healthy and unhealthy dietary pattern, so many articles, so many works have been gone behind that. The another paper, self-reported rate of eating, that means how fast you eat, correlates with body mass index. And we know that sa avakasham bhunjita, that is what Ayurveda mentions. So this is just an explanation of the verse which is there in the Ayurveda. Family food environment factors associated with obesity outcomes in early childhood. Please pardon me because many of my examples are from obesity and diabetes because that is my main working area. But these examples are good enough to understand that how research works have been carried out on these different aspects of Dinacharya and Ritucharya. So food environment, where the food is being eaten, how it affects the body mass index. That is what this paper talks about. On the right hand side left below the down, you will find the article, a structured literature review on the role of mindfulness, mindful eating and intuitive eating. So we know the verse from Ayurveda, Charaka Samhita only, Tanmana Bhunjita. So Tanmana Bhunjita, this is just an explanation of this Tanmana Bhunjita and how that particular verse, again this is a literature review. So many articles have been carried out, many works have been carried out on mindfulness, mindful eating, and this is the structured literature review of all those articles. Going further, these are the different items, the dietary items, how they affect. So body composition changes after very low calorie ketogenic diet. Likewise, we can also have our articles, Guru and Laghu Dravya, how they affect. Snigdha and Ruksha Dravya, how they can affect. Then low versus high glycemic index. Similarly, same thought process we can follow here also. Then there is a reducing the incidence of predictors of cardiometabolic disease and dysglycemia with lifestyle modification. So just lifestyle modification, doing lifestyle modification. Is this article published under the name Ayurveda, or does Ayurveda feature in name of this article? Nowhere. But lifestyle modification, that is changes in the Dinacharya. If your Dinacharya is haywire, then how you can bring changes and how you can bring down the risk of diabetes, that is what this particular article talks about. The down below article on the right side is my favorite article because it talks about specific appetite, energetic and metabolic responses to fat overfeeding. And the next term is very important, in resistant to body weight gain constitutional thinness. So when I saw this article, I first of all remember my Vata Prakriti friends because they are resistant to body weight gain constitutional thinness. We can term them as resistant to body weight gain, and that is a constitutional thinness. So how the responses change in these Vata Prakriti individuals, but the article is not under the name of Vata Prakriti. So this is how you can relate the research work which is being carried out at different levels to the Ayurveda concepts. Few more, because so far I just talked about diet. This is article, the association between sleep duration, sleep quality and obesity according to Satsang constitution. So let me first tell you that as we have Prakriti as a constitution, the Korean medicine has Satsang as a constitution. They call it, as we call it Prakriti, they call it as Satsang constitution. And interestingly, if you can see, this article is published in the Satsang Constitutional Medicine. There is a separate journal on the Prakriti research in Korea, and this article is published in that particular journal. Then this one article on Panchakarma, I think Dr. Anup Thakur has shown you this article in his presentation, that how in healthy individuals, Panchakarma can alter the metabolomic. There is one interesting article which I found today morning itself, that nitric oxide synthase or derived plasma nitrite can decide the level or the capacity of exercise. Those who don't know, I just want to tell you that nitric oxide is a vasodilator chemical, and it gives vasodilatation. So in Ayurveda, what is said that Ardha Shakti Vyayam, and what is the criteria for Ardha Shakti Vyayam? When the sweat drops appear on the forehead. So when sweat comes, when there is a vasodilatation. So nitric oxide synthase derived plasma nitrite decides the exercise capacity. It is nothing but how the interpretation can be done. I just want to show you this particular research as an example. Like we talk about Ardha Shakti, Sveda Pravritti, here they talk about nitric oxide synthase. The terms are different, but the thought process is same. Then effect of aerobic exercise and diet on liver fat in pre-diabetic patients. Why I have selected this article for you to show? Because it is combination of exercise and diet, though in pre-diabetic patients, but actually this pre-diabetes is never diagnosed. They are prone to diabetes, but usually it is not diagnosed. It remains underdiagnosed, and they are considered as if healthy individuals only. So exercise and diet can decrease the liver fat in these individuals. This is also an interesting study. The effect of lifestyle intervention in obese pregnant women on gestational metabolic profiles. Again, an interesting article, because in pregnancy, how lifestyle interventions can work. We have so many descriptions in Chirag Sadirsan's third adhyaya that if the pregnant woman consumes this, then the baby will be born like this and all. But this is the application, like how lifestyle interventions can be given to pregnant women, and that can change the fetal outcomes or the gestational metabolic profiles also. So these are all researches which I have shown you are not basically from Ayurveda, not having done under the umbrella of Ayurveda, not by Ayurvedic scientists, but still they have the crux of Ayurveda. And when this particular topic was given, this was one theme or the one point, sub-point under the essay competition which we have mentioned, and it was expected that the participants will have some review of such kind of researches which can be helpful for Ayurveda. Coming back, what we discussed so far now was research, general research. But when we talk about applied research, it is a research which contributes to policy or public health, which contributes to practice to some extent, and which reduces the healthcare. Actually, as we have seen in the first slide, there is nothing like healthcare in our country, at least, which what we talk about healthcare is actually the medical care. So reduction of healthcare cost is also one of the outcomes of applied research. So when we talk about applied researches, we should consider these kind of researches. Now let me give you a few examples of applied researches. Again, not from Ayurveda, but we will discuss these researches and then we will think how these researches have been carried out and what are take-home messages for us. So first of all, we will see applied research in public health domain. And I want to quote an example of Framingham Heart Study, which is done over still it is continued. It is being done since 1948. For 3 generations, it is being carried out for 72 years. The study is in the 72nd year of its inception. This study is being done by National Heart, Lung and Blood Institute in USA, and it started with 5,000 some odd men and women between the ages of 30 and 62 from the town of Framingham, and that's why the name Framingham Heart Study. And these individuals had not developed overt symptoms of cardiovascular diseases or suffered a heart attack or stroke when they were recruited in the study. And what was the objective of this particular study was to identify common factors or characteristics that contribute to cardiovascular diseases by following a CVD development over a long period of time. And now it is a 3rd generation which is being followed. So the original cohort was later on added by different cohorts, the 2nd generation of those men and women who participated, who were young that time, their children, then their next generation. So this is how the cohorts are being studied. And what are the outcomes of this Framingham Heart Study? That they identified our major CVD risk factors. And interesting thing which I came to know that the term risk factor was also coined by Framingham Heart Study only. There was no such term before Framingham Heart Study, that risk factor. They coined this term, they found out the risk factors for CVD, they found out other psychological, physiological conditions which can affect heart conditions or vice versa. Relationship between physical traits and genetic patterns are being studied as of now. So there are so many outcomes of this Framingham Heart Study which have shaped the policy and the work in a public health area about the cardiac diseases. Another example from our own country, Pune Maternal Nutrition Study, which has been started in 1994 and is still continued. This study is led by Dr. Chittaranjan Yagnik from KEM Hospital, Pune. And it was the cohort of 770 women, that is called as F0 generation, who were undernourished and did heavy farming work even when pregnant. Those kind of women were selected in this study. And the objective was to explore associations of maternal diet, physical activity, and nutritional status with birth outcomes and evolution of cardiometabolic risk in the children. In 2012, when the cohort is the offsprings of this first F0 generation became of age 18, the cohort study is now become as a randomized controlled trial, testing the effect of vitamin B supplementation on them, and then giving the vitamin B supplementation to this F1 generation, and then seeing the outcomes or the result on the fetal growth, epigenetic markers, and cardiac outcomes in the next, that is F2 generation. So this study is also in the phase of 2nd generation now. And what are the outcomes of this particular study? That they have found out that maternal diet, nutrition affects the size of newborns. The newborns had a thin fat phenotype, which is a typical phenotype for Asian population, which is prone to insulin resistance. And they found that 28% of the F1 generation had abnormal glucose tolerance at the age of 18 years. So this is again a study which has shaped some maternal nutrition, which is a very important aspect of health in our country. And that this study has given some new dimension to the maternal and child health. So this is a kind of research which has turned into positive things. I want to show you one example that we have a research society for studies on diabetes in India, and that has released guidelines like on exercise. So we think that yoga, lot of research has been done on yoga. Yoga is close to Ayurveda. So in diabetes management, yoga should be included. But here, what the RSSDI guidelines have recommended, that while effect of yogic practices is encouraging, it should not replace aerobic exercise. So it means that maybe yogic practices are not that much capable of burning the calories, or in other way, we do not have enough evidence to replace the aerobic exercise. So we can take it in a both way, and there is a lot of scope where we can improve, where we can work on the yogic practices. Coming to the applied research, this was about public health. Now coming to the practice thing, I just want to give you two examples. One program which is being run at Medical Research Center of Kasturba Health Society at Mumbai. That program is known as Steps to Swasthya. And in this program, individuals at high risk of cardiometabolic diseases or early cases of these diseases, very pre-diabetic kind of people, the females specifically, are recruited, and their lifestyle components are studied, and they are provided with tailor-made guidance for healthy lifestyle. And then as a follow-up, assessment of anthropometry, metabolic and reproductive health markers is being carried out. Here the model for research which is used is n is equal to 1. That means even in one participant, the effect is seen, that is being published, that is being, because this is for first time, first of its kind, like when the swasthya is only the guidelines for health tips or guidelines for health maintenance are being given to these individuals. Suppose there is a night shift, then how much sleep the individual should take. This kind of advice is being given, and the effect is being assessed. So this program is called as Steps to Swasthya, and n is equal to 1. That is only one participant is enough. This kind of research model is being practiced. Another example is Dr. Girish Velendkar. Many of you might have heard about him. He's a family physician, he's an MBBS person, and he's a family physician and lifestyle consultant. So in his own clinic, what he has done, that he has developed a health scale, starting from critical illness on one side, which is an extreme condition, then symptoms of well-being as a 0 point of 0, and then excellent health on one side. And those who are on the left side of 0, that is towards the illness side, counseling or guidance is given to them for healthy, to keep themselves healthy. There is an attempt being done to cultivate habit of attaining perfection in these individuals, and he has used very simple empirical parameters which can be followed by any clinician in his practice, such as frequency of visits to clinics or hospitals, number and frequency of investigations, expenses on consultations, investigations, procedures and medicines, loss of working days. So with this simple model, he is converting the concepts into a deliverable, that is a product, how we can keep the individuals healthy just by following, and we can document this whole thing which can later on enter into a research mode. So this is something which is very interesting, which we should take some leads from these kind of exercises. And here, as we have talked about investigation, I just want to highlight one more thing, which a research which I have done in my early research days. That we have screened 100 individuals with blood investigations and also Dhatu Samya criteria, which is given in Charak Vimansthan Adhyay 8, and we try to match it, like the individuals in whom the blood investigations are normal, whether the Dhatu Samya is also perfect, and in whether it is perfect or whether it is abnormal. So you can find that these 100 individuals are divided in 4 blocks, where investigations are normal and Dhatu Samya is also normal. There are such 38 individuals. Where investigations are also abnormal, some abnormalities there in investigations, and Dhatu Samya is also not perfect. So there are 18 individuals. But the interesting ones are those where investigations are normal, but the Dhatu Samya criteria, which basically talks about Agni, Nidra, Pachana, these kind of parameters are not perfect. They are not perfect. So they are not following the Ayurveda concept of health. So there were 31 individuals like this. Can we call these volunteers healthy? Is the question. And there were 13 volunteers in whom investigations were abnormal, but Dhatu Samya was normal. Dhatu Samya was giving perfect status, but some abnormality was there in the investigations. So what about this? This point is particularly important when we are promoting, or there is a promotion of yearly investigations, annual investigations. So are these investigations really help us in defining health? That is something also we need to consider. Coming to the third and last part is applied research for reduction in healthcare cost. We have seen that there can be one of these aspects for to call the research as applied research. So reduction in healthcare cost, and I want to show you two examples of research. One is for cardiovascular prevention, where walking has been compared with aspirin, and you can see that if you see the number of trials being done on them, they are almost equal. The research papers published are almost equal. Inclusion as treatment protocols, aspirin, yes, everywhere aspirin is included as a prevention of cardiovascular disease. But what about walking? So we are paying the cost for what? Because if you see the efficacy, it is almost equal. The number of papers is equal. The research is equal. But we are paying for aspirin for years and years together for what? And you can see the annual market. Walking, there is no annual market. And for aspirin, you can see, and this data is from 2015. So I'm sure the data must have been, the cost must have been increased now. So who are the beneficiaries for aspirin? Who is beneficiary? Who is paying for aspirin? And we are paying the cost for what? Extension of this particular thing is this particular study, effect of walking on mortality among non-smoking retired men. And this was a study published in NEJM, which is one of the reputed journal. It is a study from Honolulu Heart Program, and 700 odd men who were retired and non-smoking between the age group 61 to 81 were recruited. They were asked to walk average distance each day, and their follow-up was done for 12 years. And you can see in the figure that the distance, as the more distance they walk, the mortality decreased. The less the men walked, more likely they were to die. So simple walking can have so much of impact on the cardiovascular health, overall mortality, whatnot. So we need to really consider that whether we can do cost reduction by doing such kind of cost reduction in healthcare by doing such simple kind of experiments, which can be really helpful, directly helpful for the applied part of it, the translational part of it. I would just like to quote an example of obesity in which I am working. We know that worldwide it is a public threat. There is an increasing prevalence both in urban and rural areas, well documented etiological factors. There is a lot of obesogenic environment these days, junk food, sedentary lifestyles. Interestingly, there are 3 chapters on obesity in Charak Samhita, in Sutrasthan itself. But if we think the public health practice and cost reduction things wise impact of Ayurveda, then we have not done much about this. In public health, there is a lot of things we can do, because you might be aware that there is a debate going on whether obesity is a disease or it is just a risk factor. And the logic behind it is obesity is diagnosed based on BMI, body mass index, which is a statistical formula. So the objection is taken that how a statistical formula can define a disease, but we have a well-defined etiology, symptoms, everything of obesity in Ayurveda. So we have a lot of opportunity that we can develop public health guidelines. Practice, we have seen from so many examples, diet and exercise can help in restoring metabolic health, and there we can play a major role. Cost reduction, comorbidities cost can go down. Insurance, because since 2013, obesity has been termed as a disease, and that's why the people who are obese can get insurance policy. But all these costs can be reduced, and this is the condition where Ayurveda can contribute a lot. And I just don't want that obesity becomes a tale of missed opportunity for Ayurveda. So we have a lot of scope. This is just a case study. This is just an example, but you can come up with many such examples in Ayurveda. So coming to the end, what is the status of applied research in Ayurveda? We do not have good examples in recent times. Why I have said recent times? Because if we read Charak Samhita properly, in Charak Samhita Vimansthan 1, Adhyay 1, it is very clearly given that Trini Dravyani na ati upayunjita. Pippali, Lavan and Kshar. And that was a clear-cut guideline given for them based on epidemiological studies. After done some observational kind of data generated, and then a clear guideline was given to us for ready perusal. But in recent times, we do not have any such good example. And why we have no such good examples? Because basically we do not have any training in epidemiology and even in clinical research methodology. We do not do any qualitative research work. Every person in Ayurveda, everybody PhD student wants to do only randomized controlled clinical studies. Nobody goes for qualitative research. Nobody goes for observational studies, cross-sectional longitudinal studies. Have you ever tried that if we follow different Prakriti individuals from the age 18 up to whatever age we can follow them, which kind of diseases they develop? We have not tried this kind of exercise. We just say that Prakriti is responsible for diseases in later life or in proneness to certain diseases, but we have not carried out such studies, cohort studies, mixed method models where qualitative and quantitative both researches are done together. One more thing is we do not have adequate exposure for interpreting the evidence. Although evidence is in front of us, we are not trained to look at the evidence from different view. I just want to give you one example. This data is from the KLE BMK Ayurved Mahavidyalaya. Dr. Prasad has talked to you yesterday itself. So what they have done, they did Vamana. This is the data of Vamana in different conditions, and the effect on total cholesterol was studied. And at the end, they found that there is no effect on cholesterol. But then the thought of dividing the patients as per their Shuddhi, Pravara, Madhyama, Avara, and then it was found that when there was a Pravara Shuddhi, there was a difference of 20. When there was a Madhyam Shuddhi, there was a difference of 12.9. And Avara Shuddhi, the cholesterol levels were not affected. So if we apply Ayurvedic logic to the evidence which is in front of us, we can come up with different conclusions, with different way to look at the same data. So this is what we have to do. In the last column, you can see that the persons or the individuals in whom the cholesterol levels was increased, that was also only in one subject in Pravara Shuddhi, the increase in cholesterol was observed. But in Madhyam and Avara Shuddhi kind of individuals, there were 4 individuals in both these categories where the cholesterol was increased after Vamanam. So you can see that type of Shuddhi wise, if we do the analysis, if we interpret the evidence, we can have different conclusions. And the same data on different lipid parameters, you can see here that the above table, in the individuals whom the baseline values were in normal range, Vaman has not affected these values. But the table below, when the values were abnormal, they were high or low. Means in case of HDL, it was low, otherwise it is high. So Vaman has normalized these values. So when we interpret the evidence in this different way, so 6. So if we interpret the evidence in this particular way, we will come to some meaningful and fruitful outcomes from our own studies. And applied research, when we talk about in Ayurveda, we need for the daily protocols, Dinacharya and Ritucharya also, we have to have need-based protocols. That means a person who is staying in Mumbai or Delhi, the metro cities, where he reaches home at 9 o'clock and his life starts after 9 o'clock in the night. You cannot ask him to sleep at 10 o'clock and wake up at 4 o'clock, because that is highly impossible for a person, because his life only starts at 9 p.m. So we have to develop need-based protocols. And interestingly, what we can do is we can have must-to-know components or must-to-implement components of Dinacharya, desired-to-implement components, and nice-to-implement components. This is what you could suggest. There was one query, because Dr. Yogesh has forwarded me queries from the participants about these health essays, and somebody has asked that when the expert talk series has been arranged, that and everybody has listened to them, whether all essays will be same or not. And so there is a very likelihood that all essays will be now same because everybody has listened to the expert talks. Mind you, it is never like that, because how you understand, how you interpret, and how you put the matter matters a lot. So the essays will definitely not be the same, and we are hoping that now revised version of all the essays will come to us, and they will be much more modified and much more improved than what we have seen in the previous version. And multidisciplinary approach, because there is no harm in adopting certain things which have been already done in allied sciences. Suppose there is a satiety index, we can use satiety index in our setups also. Nobody has stopped us. So with that will make our research more meaningful. So this is how we should go about applied research. And one important thing is academics is missing from a whole picture, because whatever research has been done now, you will also say the same thing, that we were not aware that so many efforts have been done in Ayurveda. This kind of research has been done in Ayurveda, because the translation of research findings has not been done in the textbooks or some kind of manual, some kind of whatever material that will be available to students or the colleges of Ayurveda. But I certainly feel that Charak Samhita platform, Charak Samhita Online, is a good platform where you can see, as of now also, you can see many things on the Charak Samhita Online platform. And as we will go ahead, many more researches, many more things will come there, at least in perspective of Charak Samhita. So lastly, what I would like to say, that proof is not only to prove. We feel that proof means we have proven, so now it is proof. But proof is not only to prove, but to make it usable. That is the definition of proof. Anything that do not sell, I do not want to invent. Sale is a proof of utility, and utility is success. That is what Thomas Edison has said, and we all in Ayurveda sector must follow this particular thing. Lastly, very last slide, that we have talked a lot about essay competition, writing of essays. We have a lecture by Dr. Kishore Patwardhan. So we have to improve our scientific writing. And the most important hint which I would like to give you is shift from arts to science, because whatever essays were written, they were like in an arts form. Ayurveda is a traditional Indian medicinal system. It was originated 5,000 years back, that everybody of us knows. We do not want that same kind of description again and again. We want to prove the science in Ayurveda. So right from science perspective, when we studied the references which were given for the essays, it was only mainly many essays, because I was judged in the second and third 2 rounds. So I have seen that references were mainly from Ayurveda only. There was no referencing, there was no citation from the journals, which I have shown you in the beginning of my talk, that there is so much of literature available which should have been quoted, but that was not found in any of the essays. The language used. So Dr. Patwardhan has given you enough tips that how you should write. Accuracy, brevity, and clarity are the keywords. You should be accurate, you should be as brief as possible, and there should be clarity in the message. These are the 3 things which you should follow when you will write the essays. And main problem of us is, since we do not know how to ask questions, we do not know how to present answers. So first start asking questions, as many questions you have, because whatever we talk about, basically research is all about curiosity. So as many questions you will ask, you will be more equipped to write your essays, and this is how you will be able to present your essays also in better way. So here I end with the hope that Krunvanto Vishwam Sasthyam, let everybody be happy. And this was the objective of the health competition, the health essay competition. And I think this is the objective with which our mentor and mentor for this whole exercise, Dr. Gopal Vasisht, he has envisaged for this particular Charak Samhita online project. Over to you, Dr. Yogesh.
Thank you so much, ma'am. As usual, it was very motivational, inspiring, and wonderful presentation. I am thankful to you particularly because you have faced so much difficulty and you have been with us in that difficult period. Very thankful to you, ma'am. As we know, friends, this is not this essay competition is not a come and go competition. It is a process of learning. You might have learned many things about the health perspective as well as the writing skills. The improvement in writing skills are there. We wish you could improve yourself and submit the modified essays. I request Dr. Gopal Basish sir to share his thoughts on these presentations.
Thank you. This has been a wonderful experience for me also. And what I find is these two talks today should be very helpful to our young writers. And I don't think the people should take, the participants should take whether I got the prize or not. It is the gift creating better writing skills and better research. That's what we want to do, and that is the objective. That if we can create, like it has been said, writers who can write quality articles about Ayurveda and spread all over the world. We just Ayurvedic people talk to each other in Ayurvedic language. We need to learn to write the language where we want to spread this. You want to have Ayurveda known all over the world. You need to write in their language. You need to speak in their language. And that is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. As we are coming to the conclusion and end of this expert talk series, I would like to thank all the speakers who have presented, who have participated, who have been with us in this process. On day one, Dr. Gopal Basish and Dr. Upendra Dikshit talk about the concept of health and changing paradigms of health. On day two, Professor Anup Thakur sir and Professor Pawan Kumar Godatwar sir they have talked on the concept of health in contemporary sciences and importance of Panchakarma to preserve health. On day 3, Professor M.S. Baghel sir and Professor Khandel sir talk about the future strategies and prevention of disease recurrence and occurrence elaborately. Yesterday, Professor H.M. Chandola and Professor V.S. Prasad sir, they have shared their thoughts on utility of preventive health checkups and current health scenario. And today, the eminent speakers, Dr. Kishore Patwardhan and Dr. Supriya Bhalerao, they have shared their thoughts on the how to write with scientifically with impact and how to research on health. What are the concepts of applied research on the perspective of health? I thank all the speakers. I cordially thank you for gracious presence in this expert talk series. Also, I would like to thank Dr. Gopal Basish, initiator and director of Charak Samhita New Edition project, for initiation of a thought process. This is just a beginning of thought process and reviving the ancient traditional system of medicine, documenting it on a scientific platform and introducing its scientific potential to the globe. I am thankful to Dr. Anup Thakur, Director IPGTRA and Vice Chancellor GAU Jamnagar, who has given all the guidance and support for this event. I am thankful to Mr. Jaideep, Sandeep Bhai and Sushil Bhai from Aditya Info Solutions and Ketan Bhai from Guru Design Shop, who have technically supported us for this event. I am also thankful to the CS Charak Samhita Research Training Skill Development Center team, Dr. Anagha and Dr. Anish, the Charak Research Fellows, who doing their PhD at IPGTRA Jamnagar, for their support. And last but not the least, without whom the event is not successful. All the participants and learners of health, this event is actually not ended. It is a process, and it is a beginning also of new era on the concept of health. I request all the participants to revise their essays accordingly. The lectures will be available on YouTube channel also. After in a few days, we will update you on for this. I request you to submit the revised essay as per the guidelines. The guidelines are one and the same. Only the insights, and we have shared the views from our judges. We have tried to guide you how to write and how to present your thoughts, how to think on the concept of health. Request you to submit the revised essays till 30th September 2020. So that is the new timeline for submission of revised essays. I thank you one and all for this event, and really it was wonderful learning experience for us to be with you all and having you with us. Thank you so much.